Hello, everyone. It's Shane Kanto, your Wasteland reviewer, and welcome to the Wasteland, my weekly show where I take a deep dive into a particular film. And we're chugging along here in our first month of Wes Anderson to start 2025. And joining me, we got a whole crew here, and we're going to go around the horn. We have one of the hosts of the SPDM Crew podcasting network and SiftPop contributor. It's Luke. Luke, thank you so much for coming on.
Always a blast.
And Luke does his own stuff, awesome movies. So go check that out as well. And we also have a contributor and guest on the SPM Crew podcasting network, along with my other half of Red Eye Wasteland Connection. It's Corey. Thank you so much for coming on.
Nice.
Let's do
That was
this.
perfect. That was perfect. I did not bring props. What am I doing?
I just
I
have the
could have
glasses.
What I should have done was do this in Alec Baldwin impression,
Ooh.
narrating the whole thing.
Yes.
Mm.
And then what we have left for one of the managing editors of SiftPop, it's Aaron. Thank
Yeah, I also forgot my props, so I don't know.
you. There we
I
go.
got it. I got this covered,
Yeah,
guys.
yeah, yeah.
But if you didn't get the reference, we're talking about the Royal Tenenbaums today. So there you go. And if you didn't see the title of the video, but for those who haven't tuned into the show before, we have three segments here. So we have coming attractions for the weekend of January 24th. Yes, FU, it's still January, but there's still some interesting things to go check out. And we have our feature film and then some recommendations for you. So this weekend, we have the ever rolling out of the Brutalist, and supposedly this is the wide release of the Brutalist. I thought that it was this weekend as we're recording this, but whatever. I know a lot of people have seen it, but it's getting its wide release. Mel Gibson has a new film starring Mark Wahlberg as they're trying to save Hollywood, and give us a like an 85-minute movie on a plane, which is Flight to Risk. And Steven Soderbergh has a new haunted house film that's shot completely from the POV of the ghost. And, it's one of those kinds of weekends where it's that interesting mix of things from 2024 and new releases here. But Luke, which one are you most excited about?
So for me, it's the Brutalist, as in the UK where I live, it hasn't been released until I think next weekend actually. So not even this weekend, the next weekend we're finally getting it. So, and I've seen one trailer. I know who's in it. I don't know what is it about, and that's how I love it. So I'm hyped. And obviously, it seems to be the Oscar frontrunner now. So I really want to know why.
Hashtag anything but Amelia Perez. Um, but yes, so we do have the Brutalist, which is getting a lot of attention, especially a lot of people wanting to see it in IMAX
Mhm.
because it's shot in VistaVision, and just
Ooh.
has some epic scale. But Corey and Aaron, are you excited to be checking out the Brutalist?
Uh,
I
it's
think the length is what scares me.
Well,
okay.
That's
yes.
what she said.
So it's complicated, right? Because it's January, and if you know anything about film people, it's that we spend our Januaries, like at least me, catching up on all the movies that we missed, right? Because I missed so many movies last year, and so for the past month, I've been playing catch up. Um, so sure, I'm excited for The Brutalist because I always want good movies, but you know what? I'm exhausted because like in the last 2 weeks, like I've seen Nosferatu and Sing Sing and A Real Pain and like a bunch of other like Oscar movies. I'm ready for the stupid January movies.
Mhm.
When you're in January, we're January 19 today. I am I am ready for this year's Night Swim or
Beekeeper.
Megan or Beekeeper. Yes, right. Now, all three movies that I haven't seen because of their reputation, but still, I'm more excited about them than I am the movies that are trying to like, because it's like I'm Oscared out. Um,
Hmm.
Fair.
so like if this came out in November, all for it. But it's like, man, like I would 100% fall asleep to The Brutalist if I saw it this weekend. I
Hmm.
fall asleep to Nosferatu.
And that's like an hour and 15
Exactly.
minutes shorter.
Exactly.
But yes, the Brutalist, I can confirm, is an hour and 40 minutes, and then a 15-minute intermission, and then another hour and 40 minutes.
Which is great.
So,
At least, like, you
Yes.
build the intermission into it, so like that makes it much
so
more bearable for me.
Yes.
I watched it at home, and they didn't put the intermission in, so the movie's actually 3 hours and 20 minutes.
Yeah.
So
That's still too long for me right now, you know?
well, that's very fair, and that's why Aaron's most excited for Into the Deep. It has
Yeah.
sharks and pirates. So
Look, that's the exact reason why. Yeah,
Mhm.
exactly. And it's sure it's Richard Dreyfuss, they're clearly playing off of Jaws. And like Scout Taylor Compton's in it, and like she's certainly
there's
not
actually
the
some like surprising like
Yeah.
names in this
And
movie.
look, she's
That's-
not what's wrong with Rob Zombie's Halloween. She's really great. She's not Laurie Strode, but she's really great. So you know what? Yeah, give me the dumb pirate shark movie. Like, yeah.
I can confirm it is dumb. But if that is what you're looking for, but also I
Look,
have to say this. Over the credits, they have a video of Richard Dreyfuss talking about shark preservation.
Heck yes.
Yeah.
Because he was indeed in Jaws
yes.
and a part of the movie that was the worst thing in the history of the existence of sharks, which have been around since dinosaurs.
Mhm.
So there you go.
Right. Yeah, like look, I'm not actually really excited for Into the Deep, but I'm just saying like that's the kind I really want like the Meg 3 right now, Like those movies are great for what they are.
Mhm.
This doesn't have Jason Statham in it, which I think
Right.
is probably the biggest lacking thing of Into the Deep. So
Mhm.
I'll give In the Deep. Like, there's no Jason Statham punching and kicking sharks in
And,
this.
and making bee puns.
Oh, in about a couple of months, The Working Man does come out, so Jason Statham does have a new job and will be killing people for sure. So,
So
and
good to
then
hear.
Corey and I both picked Presents, which is Steven Soderbergh's new film. And Corey, why are you most excited about Presents?
It's Soderbergh, so there's one thing.
Mhm.
And I hope it's not what's the word I want to use? It obviously falls into the camp of like in violent nature, but just with the POV stuff. But you hope it's a little bit more to it, which I think it might be. I think it's a far more you have a lot more to pull from rather than just straight slasher. So I think it's gonna. I'm very interested to see how they do it, to see what they're able to kind of bring to it from that kind of different side of perspective. So I'm interested in that.
Well, and this was the film I was most excited for this weekend. And honestly, it's because I'm going to use the word gimmicky,
Mhm.
but I feel like that diminishes what Steven Soderbergh does as a filmmaker because literally every movie he does has something that he's trying to do that is different. And that's just his thing.
Right.
And like in a violent nature, this literally is all POV. So like you don't see the ghost. And I will say because I will God, this morning I went to go see Peter Pan's Neverland Nightmare.
Yes.
Would not recommend.
Maybe that's a movie for Aaron.
Look, honestly, right now, yes.
Well, here's the thing, it's not fun.
Oh.
Mm.
Nah, never mind.
So that's what I was hoping to get, but it's not. It's depressing and grim and dour for 95 minutes. But why I brought it up is because they did show the trailer for Presents, and I did get to see Presents last week. That trailer does a really bad job of setting the tone for the
Mhm.
movie because it isn't like this like white knuckling kind of thing. It's a lot more emotional and stuff like that. It's interesting. It's a very interesting experience, and I'm hoping that people go check it out. And it's also like 85 minutes.
Okay.
So you could
I
go
like
see
that.
like you could go see Presents like 3 times in the time that it takes to go watch The Brutalist. So there you go. Roughly. But
You can watch
besides
the
that,
presents on your iPhone during the intermission of the Brutalist.
oh my.
As Soderbergh, designed this. Yes, that's exactly how to watch this movie. Yeah.
this is what's going to blow your mind. The trailers
Mhm.
and the intermission of the Brutalist is more than half the length of the runtime of Presence.
That hurts my tummy.
So I do math, so there you go. I teach it. But yes, there's an interesting variety of films coming out this weekend. So those are our coming attractions. But you're not here for the coming attractions. You're here for our feature film, which is the Royal Tenenbaums, and I have some background. So this was released in 2001, written by Wes Anderson and Owen Wilson, who wrote all three of Wes Anderson's first couple of feature films. This is starring Gene Hackman, Angelica Houston, Luke Wilson, Ben Stiller, Gwyneth Paltrow, Owen Wilson, Danny Glover. Quite the cast, narrated by Alec Baldwin. This had a budget of $21 million and made $71 million. So this was his first like really big, wow, this actually made some significant money. The
Mhm.
narrative was influenced by J.D. Salinger, which I don't think would surprise anybody who's read Catcher in the Rye. This was also influenced by Louis Mayle's The Fire Within and Orson Welles' The Magnificent Ambersons. So those were some of the main influences. The Tenenbaum house is in Harlem, the Harlem section of Manhattan. Anderson specifically mixed different time periods to make this not seem like we were in New York City.
Yeah.
So they purposefully did not want this to actually feel like this was a New York movie. But it did debut at the New York Film Festival. So it is. It was very much a New York movie. Golden Globes, this did have a winner for Best Actor in a Musical or Comedy, Gene Hackman, which also, my quick side note is, I think this is one of the biggest acting nomination snubs in the past 25 years. Because the fact that Gene Hackman didn't get nominated for Best Actor for this at the Oscars is stupid. But he was a dick, so that might have something to do with it. Um, this was nominated for Best Original Screenplay, which, to be honest, that's a pretty common uh Oscar nomination that Wes Anderson gets a lot.
Mhm.
So, and we have the idea started with Anderson's his own parents' divorce. So there's a lot of influence drawing from that. Drew upon E.L. Konigsberg's book From the Mixed Up Files of Mrs. Basil E. Frankweiler, which there's a specific section of that story where you have two kids running away and wind up going to the Metropolitan Museum of Art. So Wes Anderson obviously was pulling a whole lot of things here. J.D. Salinger's Franny and Zoe influenced the Tenenbaum's children's exploits. Tenenbaum is a family Anderson was acquainted with, so he just stole the name from the actual family he knew. Jean-Pierre Melville's Les Enfants Terribles, which I'm not French and don't speak it, influenced the incestuous relationship between Richie and Margot, which originally in the was supposed to be they were actual siblings, and then they decided that would be a little too uncomfortable, so she's adopted. Um, Anderson drew upon a friend of his who actually was in love with his sister. I wonder if his friend knows that. Um, Margot was originally not adopted. But was leaning a little too hard into those incest taboo topics for the film. Oliver Sacks was the basis for Raleigh, Bill Murray's character, which is not surprising at all. Eli Cash was actually based off of Cormac McCarthy, which is wild to me. The film took 2 years to write. Royal was written for Hackman against his wishes, quote unquote. So like he was not like super jazzed about this, and but they did convince him to do the movie. Ethelene was written with Houston in mind specifically. Michael Caine and Gene Wilder were both considered for the role of Royal when Hackman originally did not accept the role, which Michael Caine, I think, would have been a really interesting casting. I think that would have worked well. Gene Wilder is a very different kind of movie, I feel like. The shooting schedule had to be coordinated around Stiller and Paltrow's busy schedules because they were pretty high profile at this point. So that's probably why they're not in the film as much as some of the other characters. Dudley was cast from Judd Apatow's suggestion because Stephen Lee Shepard was in Freaks and Geeks. So there were 250 sets used, and Anderson avoided any specific hints of New York City. So really trying to make sure that you couldn't like hammer this down in some kind of reality. Hudson was sent many pictures of Anderson's mother to base her character off of, which then Angelica Houston's like, Wes, am I playing your mom? And his response was no, which I feel like is a lie, but I'm not going to make a judgment on that. Hackman was not amiable on set, and Houston actually straight up slapped him at one point during an interaction on set. Houston's hair lit on fire actually during the birthday party scene earlier in the film. So dangerous set, I guess. And the bird so this is the craziest story, I think. The bird Mordecai had to be replaced halfway through the film because a New Jersey resident caught it and demanded a fee to return the bird to them. So go Jersey.
That's the most Jersey thing I've ever heard.
And no, they did not pay the person. So no, they did not get the original bird. So which
I know this from firsthand because that's my uncle.
I know a guy. But what's interesting is if they even make a comment about it in the film when Mordecai finds it back, and it's like it looks different because it was actually a different bird. So there you go. But that is some background there. So some weird stuff and some fun stories. But let's go around the horn here for some general thoughts. Now, Luke, I'll let you get started.
Okay, so general thoughts. I like this movie. I didn't love it. I thought it's beautifully shot. I thought not only the New York non-specificness, but also the era non-specific, also helped because like he also purposely avoided. He kind of wanted to do like the 70s feel, and only towards the end we learn it is actually 2001. So it takes place in a real time. I really liked all like many like directing choices. Like there's like a camera shot right after a crash that's just like one continuous shot and just informs us about every single character and what they're up to and how they respond to that crash. I thought it was great. I didn't like specific things, but we can get into it like later on. But overall, I did like it.
How about you, Corey?
I really like this movie. I think it's a really good kind of representation of where Anderson's going. I think you get Rushmore where it's obviously it's starting there. It's percolating and the caterpillar is going into the cocoon, and then this is really starting to break out of that shell. Hasn't quite gone full, spread its wings like Life Aquatic, I think, but I really like this hot take. I think I'm more partial to these earlier works of Anderson than his newer things, just because I feel like it goes too far, and then you start to lose a lot of certain like emotions and things like that. But that's just my vibe off of a lot of his newer work, where I feel like this is still somewhat. I don't know the right word to use. I was trying to think about it, but it's still like film. I don't know the right way to word it, but it's what you would expect in a movie, but this nice sprinkling. It's not too overindulged or anything like that with his vibe, but you still get that, and I think it lends itself well to the story of just this. I wouldn't even say wacky, just this offbeat family, and I think that works perfectly with what he's doing. I really I enjoy the music in it. I think that's really well kind of hand picked and does a really good job on a lot of scenes. Obviously, we can talk about the Richie scene, but I think beyond that, if we were to take a step back and go, well, is it your favorite? I wouldn't say so, but it's definitely a tough battle between this and Life Aquatic for me.
Okay. I think one of the things you might be getting at too is like this still feels like rural life.
Yeah.
On some level, it has
perfect.
that like this feels like it's actually like planet Earth.
Right.
Still, unlike his movies now, which feel like they're not even like what we would see around us anymore. But how about you, Aaron?
Yeah, I liked the movie as well. I'd say maybe like on a lower end of like it. Um my experience with Wes Anderson is almost all his newer stuff. So this was a very like different thing for me to experience. Like I've seen Fantastic Mr. Fox and Isle of Dogs and Asteroid City and Grand Budapest, and then the French Dispatch. I was like, I think I saw Rushmore, but like completely disassociated that
Mhm.
like from the rest of them. So like this was a very like turn it on, and I was like, oh, this is not at all what I was expecting. And I like where the movie goes ultimately. I think maybe um I don't know, I prefer the new Wes Anderson, but maybe that's just because my experience stuff. So I don't know. I think it'd be really interesting if Wes Anderson wanted to remake this movie again. I think it could be a really fun thought experiment. Or experiment for into practice or something. Uh there's some things about it that I don't particularly love. I mean, the sort of half incestuous relationship that it kind of wants me to be on board on, and I'm like, you keep on saying half, really exaggerating, or like you keep on saying adopted, like it's like anyway, and like whatever. That's a small thing. It doesn't really affect it too much, but it's just it just never kind of grew to the heights. But I did like the movie a lot more as it kind of grew on. Like just as I was getting tired of it, there's a scene that happens in a bathroom that like really kind of takes it to that next level, and then I started to appreciate it, like really along down the stretch. So. It's just a movie about like people that don't know how to ask for help, and then they ask for help and things like start getting better. And I'm like, okay, like I thought it kind of landed well. It just kind of took me a while to get there, to really get to like how do I feel about this movie. So
Yeah, this is an interesting experiment for me after doing all of John Ford's films because like I saw like a couple of the 80 films that I wound up watching before I watched them for the series.
Mhm.
I've seen every single one of his like feature films at least a couple times at this point for me. So, and I handpicked Wes Anderson to do next because he is one of my favorite directors.
Hmm.
And going into this is one of my top three favorite Wes Anderson films.
Oh, nice.
And I love this movie to pieces. And this is certainly it's not fully gone into storybook mode, but
Mhm.
it does have a lot of his visual trappings and stuff. And I would also like to lobby for either at the beginning of the film or the end of the film, every film should have all the characters be introduced and who plays them
Oh,
in
yeah.
frame
I love
because I
Yes.
that.
just that's just something like I like where I oddly really enjoy about movies when they do that. And this
Hmm.
is perfect. I love that whole moment and then the nice little transition at the end because they introduce Richie and, he has a headband, he has glasses on, and there's a little camera shot. And then it transitions into the actual action of the movie.
Hmm.
I This film has such an interesting collection of characters, and every single actor is so just on the right frequency to
Mhm.
deliver exactly what these characters are supposed to be. And there's a lot of interesting conflict. There's a lot of emotion here. And this film does go to some dark places, like referring to Aaron, the one scene that like really puts this into perspective. Like this film is dealing with some heavy issues. And also a lot of them are not very likable. And we have to see them grow. And some of them are like the anchoring pieces, because like Ethylene, I feels like is like the most I have my stuff together kind of character in this movie, and she's kind of the anchor to it. And Royal is so despicable, but
Yep.
damn, Gene Hackman is so good as this character that his whole entire thing is him being charming
Hmm.
and just like the sly dog. And he just is. And that's why he tricks the people in the movie and why he tricks the audience into liking him until he actually starts making good decisions
Mhm.
and meaningful decisions. And I like that journey that he goes on.
Hmm.
Um, it is a quirky, weird kind of film. And yes, I feel like this is the moment where it really feels like, because you have like the Alec Baldwin narration and him like telling the story of this whole entire family, like starting off at the beginning and just setting the stage for everything. And, you know, it has all the hallmarks of Wes Anderson: lonely people, vi- um, just mean violence towards animals, right?
Hmm.
And then random shocking violence, especially with Pagoda
Oh
just
yeah.
randomly stabbing. It's like, this is the last time you're gonna stab me. Oh, great friends. What a real friend would do.
Yeah.
For sure. That's how you 100% deal with your problems in a healthy way. But yeah, so let's get the elephant in the room out of the way here, because yes, this does deal with a budding relationship, or at least feelings between adopted siblings. And you know, obviously this would have been a lot worse if they were actual siblings, like it originally was
Hmm.
going to be. But I feel like the film deals with it in similar to Rushmore, where it has a 15-year-old in love with his teacher
Yeah.
and dealing with some taboo things. Do they act upon it? I sure do. But at the end of the day, they realize it's like, this isn't something we really should be doing.
Hmm.
And, you know, then yes, they do obnoxiously be like, adopted. Just to remind the audience, they're adopted.
She's not
She's
my sister by
adopted.
blood. She's not my sister by
Yeah.
blood. Okay.
Need an
Yes,
adopt. Need a counter in the corner. How many times they said adopted?
adopted.
Yeah.
Um, but I think, I guess, how much does that thread in this film, which honestly is like it is really like the big romantic thread of the movie. It
Hmm.
is the most primary in front romance in the film. How do you feel like that affects your experience watching the film?
I mean, I'll start since I brought it up. Not much, right? Like,
Mhm.
and
Hmm.
especially because I think you're right. It's handled like relatively well. Like especially like sort of the last thing they say to each other is like, I guess we'll just have to be like secretly in love with each other, but like kind of leave it at that. It's like, all right, yeah, cool. Like that's about the best of the situation you're gonna get, you know.
Hmm.
I don't, whatever. It's not obvious enough, or it's not trying to like defend their relationship or anything, you know. Um, it's not like other ones. It's so I don't know. Didn't aff- it doesn't affect my score. It's just one of those where it's like, yeah, it's a little weird.
For me, also not much because I love Game of Thrones. I love the Lannisters. So hey, like no, no problem.
Yeah,
I
at
was gonna
least it
make
didn't
it.
go
Yeah,
that far.
I was gonna
yeah,
make it even a weirder joke. I was gonna say even though something more inappropriate. I was like, you know what? I shouldn't probably say that. No, that actually,
Europeans.
yes, I know, right?
well, it's
Sweet Home,
like
Alabama.
but it's like the movie doesn't really want you to root for them to be together at the end, you
Exactly.
know?
Right.
But even sometimes Game of Thrones,
Hmm.
like that you're like, I think the creators want me to want the brother and sister to be together, but I don't want anyway. So
I think
He
Uh,
I,
should have been with Brienne of Tarth, and that's all I'm going to say about it.
yes. No, but yeah, so that wasn't actually one of my critiques. Like that, like relationship, like I kind of got what they were after in the sense where like they tried it, didn't work, and they like, oh yeah, we shouldn't be doing this, and that's the end of that storyline. And I'm like, okay, like that didn't bother me as much. Like, yeah, it's a bit icky. It's like, oh yeah, she's only related to me, like it's a stepsister. It's not by blood. Like how they keep reminding us. It's like, but yeah, that wasn't one of my critiques actually.
I think it also I feel like Wes Anderson can kind of get away with it because of his style of storytelling. Like it's one thing to just say, oh, you have adopted siblings that
Hmm.
are, in love with each other or, in some kind of romantic relationship in some way, shape, or form. Like for Wes Anderson to do that, like he only goes to a certain extent, whereas you might get somebody else who really pushes that envelope a whole hell of a lot more. And
Hmm.
and be it visually or just the way that they convey the story of the two. So I think it almost comes off probably a weird thing to say, way to say it this way, almost as just another quirky thing of this family is that you got these two adopted siblings that are into each other.
Well, and I think how this film deals with it is very matter of fact.
Right.
Yeah.
And it's not trying to pick a side, it's just
Yeah.
trying to state this happens.
Hmm.
And like, there's a whole lot of things going on in this film. Like, one, you know, she's not just in love with her adopted brother, she's also cheating on her husband
Right.
plenty of times with the drug addict piece of shit author across the street too. So
Plenty
like,
of times.
yes, there's a lot of things going on in this, and everybody has some serious flaws in this. Like I mentioned before, there's literally two friends. One of them stabbed him multiple
Hmm.
times. It's like that's not really healthy friendship. Like it's probably not the best way you deal with your conflicts with your friend, but at
Right.
least he took him to the hospital. Um,
Well,
it's like I'm gonna get mine in, and then we're gonna go deal with it. And there's a lot of elements of this film where it's like dealing with challenging, complex characters. And obviously, Royal's the biggest one.
mhm.
And I guess, how did you all feel about Royal as a character watching the film?
I can start. I, I think I felt how it's portrayed. I think you got a father figure or a father that just really wasn't the best at being a parent, and a lot of favoritism and a lot of other kind of just toxic traits that is typical in that kind of relationship, and is totally a ghost. But then when it feels like it's a personal like something is actually impacting him now, be it his wife is now seeing somebody, or something of that kind there. Now he feels like he needs to impede on it. Uh, I think I was more accustomed to how his actions really carried through to Chaz and the siblings, just how they handled what their dad did to them, and how now it's kind of their characteristics, how just
Mhm.
his toxic traits are now kind of trickling into them. That's how I saw it.
Generational trauma.
Exactly.
Yep.
Exactly.
For me, like his character, so that was one of my tinier critiques. That would be the tinier one, and there's like a bigger one, which
Mhm.
basically, yeah, Gene Hackman is great in this movie, and I actually don't mind that he is even a bit. He is an asshole,
Yeah.
and like throughout most of the movie. And for me, the turn and and then him kind of like realizing that it takes a bit to like it felt very quick. It felt like, oh yeah, I've had a realization, and from this
Mm.
very moment, I'm just gonna be doing good. I'm just gonna be like, scrap everything I've done until, for like 67 years of my life, because spoiler alert, he dies at 68. I'm gonna be so good from now on. And it just doesn't, for me, that character didn't earn this. And what we
Yeah.
seen prior, I don't think it felt very quick. I don't know how I would, maybe I would feel differently about it on a rewatch. Maybe it's just a me issue. But that was my like minor critique was that felt a bit too quick. And then and then he's trying very hard, which is good. Like obviously, there is sense of actual change. It just felt like kind of out of nowhere a bit, at least for me.
I'm exactly with you, Luke.
Oh.
Where it's like the movie goes out of its way to show how bad of a guy he is at the beginning. Like this, like even the scene with the like 11th birthday party, right? Where
Hmm.
he's like critiquing her play,
Oh yeah.
and whatnot, and then she winds up like giving him the gift back, and she like leaves her own birthday party because her dad's there, right? And
Hmm.
sorry, adopted dad
Yes.
is there. The movie just goes way out of its way, like you see the reaction of Angelica Houston when he says like he's not actually sick,
Mhm.
and then he's like, hold on, I was lying about that. Like he's just despicable the entire
Hmm.
movie.
Hmm.
Um, even up until the point even sort of after he's decided he wants to stay. I think, unless I'm misremembering where this is placed, but like the scene where he like gets really belligerent with Danny Glover's character is like
Mhm.
I
Casual
don't know,
racism.
not even casual. I
Oh,
like I
he's
don't know.
very casual about it.
Oh yeah, there you go.
Just like,
Yeah.
Like
yes.
I don't know, it's one of those where it's like it's one of those where it's like, man, how do you redeem this character? I'm a little like I'm with you, Luke, where it's like I understand, like I didn't really like the movie kind of brushes it off in one line where it's like he says like the last 6 days are the best days of my life or whatever,
Yes.
and he's
Yes.
like, and then he's like, and then after that I realized that I actually told the truth in that moment, and it's like
Hmm.
that could be like the start of something, but that's not like enough for me to really believe that that character like is like on a good path to redemption or and whatnot. But I also think like by the end of this movie, the gap between the wedding day and his death, like it's meant to be the start of him culting a relationship again with his kid.
Hmm.
So it's like I don't need him to be fully redeemed by the end. I just have to believe that he wants to change.
It's not
And
even about full
I don't believe
redemption.
that his like because of the change seems so insignificant. It sort of seems
Hmm.
like a short-term thing to me. So
Yeah.
I
No,
think
for me,
I
it wasn't even about the full redemption. Just to like clarify something, it wasn't even about full redemption. It was more
sure.
about
Yeah.
the movie is like hour 50, right? And for
Mhm.
like I would say hour 20, I wasn't stopping it, I wasn't timing it, but for hour 20, we see him being despicable, being an asshole, and then for the last 30 minutes, we see him great, and then somehow turns the entire family. And I'm
right.
just saying, sitting there thinking. Really? Like last, let's say, few weeks, few months of his life, will it actually turn the entire family around to the point where they actually gather to his funeral and all is forgiven?
Right.
Really? Like that felt slightly hollow, and it felt like, as a person who just came back from a funeral with a very split family, that's not how this shit works. Like no matter how you do this, like no matter how you cut it up, it's not how this shit works. It's a bit more complex. So like we were talking about runtime before. I feel like this movie to earn this would have to be maybe half an hour longer. Maybe. And again, but I suspect it's just a me issue. So, what do I know?
And this might, so I don't know how many times you all have seen this movie. This is probably
Just
like my
once.
sixth,
Oh.
seventh time watching this movie.
Mm-hmm.
I think that at the heart of it, it's the actions that he starts taking
Mm-hmm.
Sure.
Mm-hmm.
that, because here's the thing, and I'm speaking for myself here with daddy issues. And who I didn't speak to my father for like 7 years of my life.
Mm-hmm.
And, I have a decent relationship with my father at this point. And like, I don't need to be best friends with my dad at this point to
Mm-hmm.
appreciate that I at least have my dad in my life. And there's always a different layer to like, what's your threshold to forgive
Yeah.
somebody?
Mm-hmm.
And I do find it like, and I think it's important in this film that not everybody forgives him on the same level. Because, like,
Mm-hmm.
case in point, Richie never gave up on his dad. So, first off, that's like he's been in his corner the whole entire time.
Mm-hmm.
Chaz obviously was very belligerently not approving of his dad. And the action of him saving his kids,
Yeah.
I think, was enough for him to like realize, wow, like maybe there is something redeemable here.
Mm-hmm.
And obviously, Chaz is very fragile too at this point because, like, he's dealing with the loss of his wife and he's so, like, clutching onto his kids so much. And obviously, that action, like, he could have lost his kids too if it wasn't for his father. I don't think Margot really forgives him
Mm-hmm.
in this. I think
Sure.
she's fine dealing with him being in the space at this point.
Mm-hmm.
And I think what happens with Ethylene is that I don't think she ever really believed that he would let her go.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And when he shows up in front of Danny Glover, which also he really should have he
Apologize. Yes.
apologized to him, which, you know, Royal's not a perfect person, and also that's a big glaring like you were extremely racist to this man. Like you should have apologized in some shape or form. But I think to Royal, him approving of them getting married, I think was enough, which you can argue that that's not enough. But I think to Ethylene, the fact that he actually agreed to the divorce
Mm-hmm.
showed that, wow, he has actually grown in some shape or form.
Mm-hmm.
And, it is a movie.
Yeah.
So, like, that's a tricky thing. It's like, if this were a series, you'd probably see him go through a
Right.
lot of things. It works for me. And by the end, and the thing is, so many characters in Wes Anderson movies are not great people.
Mhm.
And my next episode is dealing with the like Steve Zissou is the worst of his protagonists as just a person. And that one I think is very challenging for people to process because yeah, he's a really bad person. I think the performance Gene Hackman gives in this goes a long way in selling that, which is also hilarious because he was an asshole too. So um he really went there, but obviously I think Royal is the linchpin to all this because this is his story and him trying to find some kind of redemption. But I guess who are some of the other characters or threads that you all liked most about the film? Maybe
I
Aaron,
like
if you go first this time. Yeah.
I liked Buckley, and that's why I was so mad when the movie just killed him off screen.
That's the biggest, I think one of the biggest criticism of Wes Anderson is how unceremoniously he just kills animals.
Yeah, but then
And
he
it's
makes a
just like,
movie called I Love Dogs, and it's like, no, you don't.
it's just like, yeah.
Yeah.
It's like,
Um,
well, if there's that many animals in it, then it doesn't feel like he's purposely being mean when he kills one of them.
right.
Oh,
Yes.
so-
Yeah. I don't know. I wanted more of the Ben Stiller character.
Yeah.
I thought he was the one that I kind of like latched onto the most, like his sort of situation. Maybe it's because the movie starts by introducing us to him. Is Chaz? Is that his name?
Mhm.
yep.
Yeah.
Um,
And
like
his tracksuits.
yeah, yes, it like gives us his backstory first, and then it gives us the other ones. Like as far as like when they grow up as a kid, and then like he's the first one we've seen as adult, and then it's kind of like he's just kind of around, and his character is very like one note because of it. I mean, I think you mentioned earlier like scheduling conflicts, which makes total sense, but it is one of those where it's like I felt like I wanted more from that character, but it also like I think he was my favorite character because I mean again to me this is a movie about a bunch of people that need help but don't know how to ask for help, and so it kind of leads to this point at the end of the movie, you know, where it's like, you know, again like Owen Wilson's character doesn't know how to ask for help, so he has his climactic scene with trigger warnings in it. You know, and like his scene is that very last one that we see before the epilogue, where it's him, you know, finally like being cool with his dad, you know, and he's like, you know, it's been a hard year.
Mhm.
So I like but it's like I feel like there's more to that character. I feel, but it's also um it's something that like I've not like dealt with the loss of a partner or anything like that, but it's one of those where I just like I guess I wanted more of him because it's like I understand what he's doing, I understand where he's coming from. It feels like he has like the most potential out of a character, and it just because of scheduling conflicts kind of just felt like the main like the surface. Anyway, it was my favorite character, and unfortunately, like it's still my favorite despite having like a really cut runtime. So
I
oh
feel like the challenging thing about Chaz is that he has sacrificed his whole entire personality and focus to two things.
Mhm.
yeah,
Well, I guess technically three things. One, his dad and
yeah,
his daddy issues, because
Mhm.
like they have the most extensive history with each other with the whole BB, him shooting. It's like we're on the same team, but like there's no teams, Chad.
Yeah.
Just like shoots him. What a dick. Um, and like he got his dad disbarred.
mhm.
Like that's a lot. Like he completely tore up Royal's life, which like did Royal deserve it? Probably. But like,
Definitely.
yeah. Well, and it's one of those kinds of things where it's like it's his father issues, it's the loss of his wife that he can't get
Mhm.
over and has made him so hyper focused that everything has become either about his job or like controlling his kids to
Mhm.
make sure that they can't
Yes.
be hurt. And like that whole fire drill thing so intense and
Oh yeah.
neurotic at the beginning of the film. And then it's his kids. And like and that's a challenging thing because he unfortunately is distancing his own children because he's trying to protect them and he's becoming over overly focused on that, where he's not letting them live.
Mhm.
And that's why I feel like that, which also to Paul Simon, Julio in the schoolyard, and that whole entire montage with Royal taking them out, that was so much fun. That was one of my favorite scenes of the entire movie. He went to a dog fight. Like, what the wrong
Dog
with
blood.
this man? Oh
Yeah.
my god, crazy. But like, I could definitely see where you're coming from, Aaron. And for me, I feel like Chaz has unfortunately gotten stunted into a place where, you know what, he should just went to therapy.
Yeah.
But I think they all could have used therapy.
Right.
We're just saying, that's just blanketed statement. The summation of this movie, therapy is a good option. So there you go.
Yeah.
How about you, Corey?
If they were okay with therapy, this movie doesn't exist. Yeah.
Right.
Most movies.
Well, yeah.
Yeah, a lot of movies. If therapy existed, does.
I think
So
the
take
beekeeper
advantage
still
of it.
exists, so we're good.
True.
Oh man,
Too
keep
good.
going back to go check out the beekeeper. It's on VOD somewhere. But Corey, who is like your standout character or story?
I mean, I've seen this a few times, and it was always, oh gosh, now I'm drawing like such a blank. I'm even dressed like him, but
Richie.
Luca, yeah, Richie. And just the way if that, like you were saying, where he's in his dad's corner the whole time. He knows that his dad, that there's something there that his dad's, in a lot of cases trying, and he's giving his dad the benefit of the doubt.
Mhm.
But I think to as like Aaron, you're saying there, I think Chaz was the one that really stood out to me this go around. And I think the reason, like we were talking, I think he's just, and it's no discredit to Mario or Richie, I just think he has the most trauma. So it's very much so an instance where it's just like you're rooting more for him and you want to see where he's going to be at the end of this based off of where he's starting or what's been dealt to him. That's at least where I was in that. Another one was Dudley. The just the weird kid, and, with all of his symptoms and color blindness. That was great.
I just want to put a quick side note. Bill Murray is such a depressive in this film and plays it so
That-
perfectly.
We've talked about it previously, Shane, but that scene where him and Margot are sitting there and he's just like, well, I want to die. And like he's so sad he can't even take a bite out of the cookie. And like that's just perfect.
Or even it's like, no, could I get a cigarette? It's so passive
And he
aggressive.
doesn't even know how to hold the cigarette.
No.
Yep.
It's so passive aggressive. It's just like, damn, this man in this moment. No, I think Richie's story is very interesting because, like, obviously, Richie goes to the darkest place
Mhm.
out of any of these characters, and that scene hits
Oh, yeah.
so hard. Just the blocking, the framing of everything, and like the really sad buildup of him like shaving off his hair and his beard, and like that's a quote from another film, and I thought I wrote more notes
Didn't know that.
background, but like that specifically is a quote from a French film because nobody's surprised a French film would be dealing with some dark shit.
Right.
But like it's just like I'm gonna kill myself tomorrow. Like that's an actual quote from a film that Wes Anderson channeled
Ah.
from. But like it's such a powerful moment, and
Mhm.
it's hard to because like in general, the vast majority of human beings are not in love with a family member. So it's not a relatable thing necessarily. But the thing is, it's like what is relatable is being in love with somebody you can't be with.
Mhm.
And sure, is this a very taboo way of channeling that theme? Correct. But like it's still at the end of the day, it's like not only is he in love with her, but she's also married. And then also his supposed best friend sleeping with her. And you just have all of these things that build up on Richie and his journey in this film. And I think it's very cathartic that in the end, like he's okay.
Mhm.
And also Luke Wilson, I think on the rewatches of Bottle Rocket and this, I want to see more Luke Wilson.
Hmm.
Like
Yeah.
obviously he's a lot less outwardly quirky and charismatic than Owen Wilson. And that's probably why Owen Wilson became so famous and got bigger roles. I think Luke Wilson's probably a little bit more limited in the
Mhm.
kinds of roles that he can do. But when he's there, he really nails it. And I loved him as Richie in this. And I think it's probably his best performance of his career. And I just want to say, I want to see Luke Wilson pop up in more things. And I don't think that's controversial.
No, I mean, but you're right. He's a lot more limited, right? Like if you want to throw him in he works really well in a lot of comedies, but it's like he works really well in comedies, like as the straight man,
Yes,
like in Old School. Like he's just kind of some normal dude that gets thrown in this situation or something
with
like
some
that.
crazy ass friends.
Yeah.
Exactly, yeah.
Very specifically.
Yeah, some friends who are like, man, I envy your situation, and here's what I would do, but it's not you. So anyway.
Mhm.
Yeah. How
I
about
would like
you?
to talk more about
Go
that
for it.
scene alone with Richie, just like
Mhm.
how the color that is used, just the quick cuts and the cuts that they do use of Margot and Mordecai. I think that just of Mordecai himself, for me, this time around was like super like, whoa, like because he's letting his bird be free. So it's
These
kind
are
of
all
this,
signs of somebody is suicidal and people
yeah.
should have been paying attention.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
then even and cherry on top, of course, the song that they chose and
Yeah.
the proposed way that Elliott Smith had gone out in this with taking, going his own way, how he chose, supposedly. But I think that just hits it even more home, where
Mhm.
it's like, geez, there's so many layers to this one scene of how like just dark it is.
How about you, Luke? What was like who was your like standout character or story?
I feel like I'm gonna be basic. I'm gonna say Royal and aka Gene Hackman because like not to discredit anything he just said, but all the other ones are kind of on the same level to me. They all have their highlights, but I don't think anybody stands out as much as Gene Hackman does. But obviously it's by default because he is the leading man, right? So like nothing to not not to diss on the other people. It's just and I actually and here's the thing because I actually like the anti-hero, the like villain is a protagonist kind of thing because I don't mind rooting for the bad guy if there's something to root for, right? So I actually liked the his path. I actually liked his realization. Yeah, those have been my 6 day, best 6 days of my life. How do I replicate it going forward, going forward? And yeah, like despite everything I said before, again, just add a bit more time and or maybe some like timestamp, like, oh yeah, we are in March, now it's October and he's changed so much. Yeah, okay, fair. So like I thought, yeah, Gene Hackman did definitely like stood out of all the characters. I have a question for all of you. Do you think Gwyneth Paltrow is great in this movie? Because I feel like there are some scenes where I feel like even with her character, like she was a bit miscast for me. Like no, like she wasn't bad, right? But I could see name me a or not hot, but like like a a star
Popular
like a
first popular
yeah, like
actress of that time.
obvious Hollywood person from 2001, put her in that movie, and I think that role would like even lit up even more. Like I don't know, maybe again it's just a me thing, or how did you guys feel about her?
I mean, I liked her.
Okay.
I don't know that I loved her, but I think
Hmm.
some like there's a good amount of that to where it's like she's kind of the prototype female in a lot of like modern
Hmm.
Wes Anderson movies where they're kind of like these like distanced,
Hmm.
sort of apathetic, which is very
Hmm.
like counterculture to a lot of the times that women are portrayed. Very like Scarlett Johansson in Asteroid City or
Hmm.
so it's like it. I don't know, I thought she was really good. I just uh yeah.
I feel like
maybe
what
there
I'm
could have been
trying,
a little bit. I think she's like very like intentionally subdued.
yeah,
Especially because like if she is giving a little bit more, we're like, hold on, we're spending so much time on Royal being terrible, but she's, you know, ran away from home a few times, cheating on her husband, smoking behind everybody's back. Like that's a big deal or whatever. I don't
Right.
know. And then and like
I
all
think
like
it's more
she's
the
doing all these things where
lying.
you're like, maybe she's also kind of a bad person.
I feel like it's not even about her being subdued or like she needs to have more scenes or anything like that. What I'm trying to say is even those tiny moments of like, her being subdued, like Angelica Houston, I had no problems with her because like she nails every single scene she's in, right?
She was
Sure.
born
Well,
to be that
Yeah.
kind of
she was
like.
born to
It's
be,
Well,
and
and
Angelica Houston.
I
yes.
think that's to your point, Luke. I am fine with Gwyneth Paltrow in this
Hmm.
film. I think she accomplishes the assignment.
Yes.
Could
Yeah.
there have been a performer who would have made more out of it?
Hmm.
Probably, because like to be frank, I don't think Gwyneth Paltrow is the strongest actor, and I think she fit that role. And I
Hmm.
also need to look up Nico, and because apparently her whole entire performance and character were based off of Nico, which is why they used her music multiple times for
Mm.
when Margot was on screen, like the coming off the bus moment, which that's like the symmetry of Wes Anderson
Yeah. Yeah.
of the reverse shot of Richie staring at her and her getting off the bus, and that music's perfect.
Hmm.
That was the vibe that Margot was supposed to have. That's what the makeup and everything.
Hmm.
Yeah, I think that's exactly like you're saying. Now, I'm not the most knowledgeable of like old French film, but of what I've seen, I think she portrays a lot of female characters in that space very well in that light. Like it's almost like Anderson going, "Hey, see these roles, see these kind of characters. Let's portray that a little bit." So I think that's
Hmm.
why we're getting. I think what Aaron and also at least what I took from Aaron saying subdued, I think it's exactly that. I think just the trauma that she's gone through has just made her so just the her wall is so up in a lot of cases that you're getting that stone wall, that
Hmm.
stone presence from her throughout. And
Well,
that's just
and
the way she
timing,
handles it.
I think timing wise, like, well, at this point, I'm pretty sure as a teenager, Scarlett Johansson, I think, is really like sliding into that Wes
Yeah.
Anderson role of like Asteroid City. Like, if she was older, I think she would have been
For
really
sure.
good in that role. But
Yes.
she was a teenager, so like, timing and stuff like that.
What
I
about
would
what
have to.
about like a actor that I kind of hate? Like, what about Liv Tyler in that role? Like that fits the timeline. I
I could
That would have
see
been
her.
interesting, but I think she's a. See, now I don't want to sound mean.
Mhm.
Um,
No, I just
I
said I
feel
hate
like
her. Like
Uh-oh.
she's
I feel
terrible in
like Liv
Armageddon. She's
Tyler
terrible in The
is.
Strangers.
I
She's
think she's
awful.
even more limited as a
Yeah.
performer than Gwyneth Paltrow. So like I think
You've
that's a
got
challenge.
Eowyn and that's it.
It, Nepo babies. Um, but like it's an interesting thought, and I think
Mhm.
that would be interesting because if I did have to pick somebody who as a performer, didn't stand out to me as much in this film, it would probably was Gwyneth Paltrow.
Like, I
Because I
didn't mean to. Sorry, I'm gonna go.
Go ahead, Luke.
No, I was just gonna say, like, I don't mean to harp on this any further. I just wanna say, like, Corey said something that I was like, okay, I understand everything, and I agree with everything. Like, what she was supposed to emulate, and that got me thinking. I think that's my problem. I
Mm.
think I understood everything she was supposed to go for, and I can see her emulating that, but I cannot see her acting it.
Ooh.
It felt like it felt for me, her performance was like not. She was too focused on emulating the acting, almost.
I I want to see a slightly older Natasha Lyonne do
Oh
this, but
yeah.
I don't think she fits the traditionally as attractive movie star type that
Yeah,
Gwyneth
yeah.
Paltrow is, which is probably why
Hmm.
she wouldn't have been cast in this. But like, I think she definitely gets that vibe very
I
well.
thought
I'd
of
be
somebody
agree.
like Jennifer Connelly. Like even at that age would actually be perfect age, right? And
Damn, I love Jennifer Connelly.
Me
That's a
too.
good one.
And I think she's a great actress, and I think she has the look. Like she's gorgeous, and I think she can make those moments of, hey, we're going for this French, French cinema of 60s, 50s. You need to be subdued. I think she could actually nail it. Like, and that's what I was thinking. So, like, instead of watching Gwyneth Paltrow being like, oh yeah, I'm emulating here. I'm emulating here. We could have been watching Jennifer Connelly. I'm acting here. But again, we don't have to harp on this any longer. Just, it's obviously a me issue, so it's fine.
I'm now gonna not. I'm going to think about that every time I watch this movie now. But
Sorry.
anyway, I guess kind of like wrapping up the discussion of this film specifically, are
Mhm.
there any like things that you specifically feel like we need to bring up because it's good or bad as part of
Yeah.
this discussion?
So if I can start, and because I would also like to hear your guys' input on this. My biggest problem with this is not problem, critique, I would say. This is, I think, the most serious Wes Anderson that he I've ever seen. Right? I think this is close to like an actual drama, and that typical Wes Anderson quirkiness really was disruptive at the various moments. That quirkiness, that humor of his, I mostly like. I actually mostly like most of his movies. I almost feel like he wanted to really make this drama and felt like, but I'm Wes Anderson. I still need to insert quirky joke here and quirky character here. Otherwise, people will not enjoy it. Otherwise, people will not like it. And to me, that form is not suited for this kind of story involving suicide, involving broken family. I don't think that form of specific Wes Anderson quirkiness have worked fully for this movie. And again, I might be on the island. I totally understand it's again it might be a me issue, so I would love to pick your brains if I'm the only one.
For me,
Hmm.
and I might not be the best person to speak upon this because I eat this shit up all the time.
Good. Good.
I think it's perfect, the tone and everything. And it would be very interesting if you were on my Life Aquatic episode because I feel like that's the film that gets called out the most for
Hmm.
tonal issues with like his quirkiness is getting in the way of some really serious things that are going
Yeah.
on here.
Hmm.
Um, it didn't bother me
Okay.
personally. I think Wes Anderson, especially at this point where he's maturing at this point, because
Hmm.
this was his third feature film
Yeah.
at this point. I feel like he was getting a good handle on balancing because like there's a lot of dark shit in his
Hmm.
movies, like all of them. And I feel like this might be him really getting into his own, but that's my perspective, loving this film and having watched this like 6 or 7 times.
Hmm.
I think I'm with you, Shane. And kind of like I mentioned earlier, I think this the story that's being told with what we know Wes Anderson and how he operates, I think it is a good mix of the two in kind of the storytelling and how he visually tells it. Um, Whereas, do I think like how we're saying there, Asteroid City would tell this story pretty well? I don't think so because I think it would get lost in the sauce on a lot of stuff with the symmetry that he's known for and just the coloration and you can go list goes on of all the Andersonisms I think that comes to it. But yeah, I think again back to what I was saying how this earlier work I find it a lot more I hate to say enjoyable, but enjoyable when it comes to because we're now getting that we're getting a decent dramatic, pretty hard-hitting story, but with visual storytelling that you're not typically seeing in these kind
Hmm.
of situations. So I think it works well in that. So I think it's a good
Hmm.
marry of the two from my
Hmm.
perspective.
How about you,
Uh,
Aaron?
I I agree with both sides actually. But actually completely disagree with what Corey just said. I actually think like Asteroid City tone would be perfect for this movie. I was gonna say that before you brought it up, but I like to me like Asteroid City like really works like as a Wes Anderson film because it is like doing the quirky Wes Anderson thing, but it's also like a very different style of comedy than something like Grand Budapest. Like he has several different like notches of comedy,
Mhm.
like where he's very funny and but like Fantastic Mr. Fox is a very different comedy than Grand Budapest is a very different comedy than Asteroid City. And I think Asteroid City fits very tonally with what, with its messages about like death and legacy and like the other things that it has going on. So I
Good
actually
call.
think, I would really like to see Wes Anderson remake Royal Tenenbaums in his Asteroid City era, or at least like with that style. But I'm with you, Luke, as well where I don't know that I thought about it, but maybe subconsciously, where there are some moments where I guess the type of comedy doesn't necessarily align.
Yes.
I don't know it's the fact that is a comedy, but like there are moments that I think he does his Wes Anderson-y thing, and it really works, and it's like a good chunk. And then there's other moments where I'm like, that belongs in a different movie. Specifically, some of the stuff that I actually liked the most, the like like he actually saved my life and yada yada yada. It's like, well, who stabbed you? He's like, well, he did. There was a
Mhm.
bounty on my head. And then later, after everything goes to shit and he stabs him again, he's like, that's the last time you stick a knife in me. I'm like, I think that's hilarious. It just doesn't really feel like it belongs, like that style of comedy belongs in this movie. So I kind of want it to be like more like I just want it to kind of pick a lane and go like any like there's a way to do comedy and to do some of this stuff.
Mhm.
It's just like it felt like it was a little bit like um of some of the more slapsticky that just didn't quite jive with me. Felt like it belonged in a different movie.
Can
I
I
wonder
And
if
ask?
that's like a Owen Wilson thing since he co-wrote it.
Probably, yeah, actually,
Well,
maybe.
probably that's a really good point.
and what's
Yeah,
a very
maybe.
interesting thing is because this was his last one that he did with Owen Wilson in a
Right.
row, because Noah Baumbach co-wrote Life Aquatic, which
Ah.
is a whole different point. And then he wound up doing stuff with Roman Coppola and Jason Schwartzman, I think,
Hmm. Hmm.
most recently. But
Sure.
I have an interesting question. Is a lot of that humor specifically Royals humor?
It's not even Royals humor. It's more like
Well,
just to
I was wondering if
address.
like it
Yeah.
consistently was just his type of like snarkiness.
Not even
How
that, no. Like it was just the situations. Like
okay.
it's like just to address like Corey's response. Like the visually, like I like when I said like the Wes Anderson style didn't fit this movie. I didn't think I wasn't talking about visual. No, visually I wouldn't change a thing. No. Like the symmetry, all that, like that worked for me beautifully in this movie. It was the quirky style of humor, not with one specific character. There was all just like especially like second half of the movie where we deal with the suicide, where we deal with the more heavy subjects. It felt like, oh damn, Wes Anderson actually directs the fuck out of this drama, and it's great. And then there's this quirky like, oh yeah, he stabbed me right now, and he stabbed me before, and I'm like, I get it, but I don't think it belongs here. Like, and again, like probably just a me issue. I totally get it because like this is one of his highest rated movies, so works for most people more.
Right.
Get it.
Except for the
And
people
I
who hate
also
Wes
like
Anderson.
yeah, and I still like this movie. By the way, I'm not I'm not trying to shit on it. Like still, I rated it like that's the thing, right? I was between 4 and 4.5 when I was rating it on Letterboxd. I ended up giving 4 just because of those issues.
Hmm.
But I'm more than happy to admit I'm not in the best mind space right now. So if I were to rewatch it like a year from now, might be better. Might be better. So it might be totally on a receiver, on me. So no, so that was my biggest issue. I just thought some of the scenes, especially the second half, are like I just wish Wes Anderson would commit to this like actual drama with the heart and with this, about a father who wants to change rather than just oh let's throw in a quirky joke here and a quirky joke there because I'm Wes Anderson and that's what is expected. That's my MO.
Well, I'll one thing I'll push back on is I
Hmm.
don't think it's expected at this point since he
Yeah.
only has like three movies.
Hmm.
I think it's just him.
Yeah.
And I think it like that's just his sense of humor, I think.
Fair.
Or it could very much be could be who he's writing with too. It could have been
Hmm.
Owen Wilson's
I think that was a
sensibility.
good point actually, the Owen Wilson point. I think that was actually a really good point. Yeah, I didn't
And
think
I think a
about it.
lot of even some of I think a lot of Owen Wilson's delivery is kind of in tandem
Hmm.
with Hackman's delivery on a lot of the jokes. I think those two have the most of them. um, on that, especially the Wildcat
I
part.
hated
That's
Eli so much, which like you're supposed to because
right.
Eli's an asshole, but he's also sad. And I think at the core of this is a film about, like most Wes Anderson films, a bunch of sad, lonely people
Yeah.
and coming together. But I guess what are some other things quick that stand out before we do some quick recommendations for everybody?
I hate Eli too because he killed Buckley.
You know, I
That's
wasn't.
That's
deservedly
it.
so.
I don't know. I don't know how to feel about Royal getting Chaz a new dog so dang quick. I don't know.
That's the other
Oh
thing
yeah.
That
too.
felt so
It's
weird.
like, hey, sorry your dog died. Here's another one. That'll make
Right.
everything good. It's like,
And didn't
Well,
he buy him
I
from
feel
the
like that just
fireman?
reinforcing
Yeah.
that, like,
I'm not convinced he bought him. I'm pretty sure he could have stole them for all we know about Royal.
Maybe, yeah, he probably talked
here's
his
the
way to get
thing.
it.
I think that's just reinforcing that I don't think Royal's the most,
Yeah.
what's the word I'm looking
Maybe he
for?
meant well.
Thoughtful.
Adjusted. Uh, dealing with human emotions. And
No,
like,
you asked what we would highlight. Camera work,
yeah,
100%. Like
Mm.
again, that shot right after the crash, and that one continuous shot where we like every character gets a line or two, and we just like and we slowly kind. It almost it's like a maze, almost like a picture or like a museum painting. That was beautiful, and the cinematography here is awesome. Well, to be fair, it's a Wes Anderson movie. Every single one of his movies is like cinematography, like it's
Right.
10 out of 10.
Yeah,
So like
but
that.
but this doesn't feel like as flashy as a lot of like his modern like
yeah.
stuff.
True,
Yeah.
I
Where
true.
think
like Grand Budapest is like in your face, like give me that Oscar,
Yes, yeah.
This is like a very subdued, like very like
Hmm.
natural feeling.
well,
But
that's
also
the
like
thing too, because
impressive.
I think when it shifts into the handheld camera,
That's
it feels like actual life around you. Like the chase through the house,
Hmm.
chasing Eli, feels very visceral and everything because it is a cameraman chasing after them.
Yeah.
And God, when they knock the priest down the stairs, just
Oh yeah.
like,
or did I don't know if I heard the line right, but doesn't Pagoda offer Eli bacon as he's running through? Like as he's about to head to the backyard, he's like,
I
have
don't
this
think I
bacon.
noticed that.
Yeah, he like hands him a piece of
I don't think I
bacon.
noticed that.
I I do think like just the technical aspects of this.
Hmm.
Mark Mothersbaugh's score, I love, and then all the music choices because
Yeah.
obviously Wes Anderson's a big fan of that '60s era of rock music and popular music, and like even like the Hey Jude being used in it, and that just there's moments in this that just a swelling of emotions come and like when Mordecai's like flying off with that crescendoing, it just
Hmm.
feels that way. And there's just so many special things that this film does so well. And like this is personally why it's one of my favorites because like I emotionally connect with this
Hmm.
story a lot. And maybe it is my daddy issues. And processing because like I've gone through those complicated emotions before of, forgiving somebody that maybe didn't deserve it. But
Hmm.
it's life and life's complicated. And no
Hmm.
matter how not like real life this feels at sometimes, it's there's still people. And I think that's the thing to your point too, Aaron, is that it feels grounded still
Sure.
in ways that like this still feels like the world around us. Just, the hipster neighborhood. Where somebody went and shot all this. But any other last minute quick things before we jump into recommendations?
No, I'm all good.
I'm all good
All
as
righty,
well.
let's go around the horn. So, Luke, what are you recommending?
So I still haven't seen Anora, but I'm gonna be recommending another Sean Baker movie, Tangerine, from 2015. Um, Shot mostly on like very low budget. I think they didn't even have permissions to shoot in LA, so I think he shot it in like with an iPhone, an actual
Yeah.
iPhone, not Steven Soderbergh. This is an actual lens for like $2 million, an actual iPhone. So like it's mesmerizing. It's vivid. It feels raw. It feels honest. It happens during like pretty much 2 nights, and I love these kind of like almost real time movies. The characters are great. We follow a bunch of interesting people. Some of them good, some of them bad, some of them someplace in between. And there's that movie has some, like, I don't know how to say this differently. The movie has a soul in a way, and I really love that like about that. So Tangerine.
It's extremely authentic because they're just like regular
Yeah,
people playing those characters. So,
correct. Yeah.
how about you, Aaron?
Yeah, in my quest to watch a ton of 2024 movies, I prioritized one because it was one of those where it's like, oh, the people that have seen it loved it, just not a lot of people have seen it. It's a movie called Exhuma, Exhuma. Yes, Shane was one of the ones that had seen it. It's a Korean film, or I don't, it stars Korean people. I don't know if I don't think it's Hollywood. But there's like some English and some foreign language. I don't know if it would be enough to get it into the foreign language Oscar, but still, it's a very interesting movie that it's one of the most unique I've seen since maybe like Everything Everywhere All at Once, where you're just like, I don't even know how to say that. Like that one's kind of like a cross between like Matrix and like several other. This one is kind of like a cross between it feels kind of like a Constantine movie, like a lot like a Constantine movie, but also like a cross between like Memories of Murder, and like a good amount of like James Mangold's The Wolverine in there. This movie's just kind of like its own thing, and it's like, oh boy, I want to love this so bad. It's got some pacing issues, and it's got some other things that just kind of hold it
This
back
was
for me,
like
like a
2 hours and 20 minutes, wasn't it?
214,
Something
yeah.
240, yeah.
And it kind of does that thing where it's like it tells one story and kind of sets up the world in like the first hour, and then has like a second thing that is sort of related but kind of feels like its own second thing that's like the next hour and 15 minutes. It's one of those where it kind of feels like you watched a TV pilot and then the follow-up episode, which was, like it should have been like maybe a 5 episode miniseries that was then crammed into a 2 hour and 15 movie. Actually, like I really want more of this, this like world and concept. It's about like people who own grave sites, and but like there's this whole like mysticism and spirituality about it, and they're like it's very much like Supernatural, like the TV show Supernatural, where they're like, there's these processes and these rules, and this and this and this, and like they don't like spell it out for us. They just kind of do it, and it's like they kind of like catch you up along the way, sometimes, or you just like see them happening. You're like, I don't even know why they do it or the history. I just know that they do it, and that's all it's fascinating, and it's really cool. It's shot really well. It's really well acted. It's just one of those like super unique movies it's like a great like 4-star movie, 3.5, 4, somewhere around like just solid. Solid movie from 2024 that probably not a lot of people have seen. So if you want to like, if you want to get a step up on all the other, your movie friends, be like, hey, here's one you haven't seen from last year. That's a great one.
It's a Korean film, and it's from I got access to a screening link from Wellgo USA, who does a lot of PR
Okay.
for Asian cinema, bringing them into the United States. And I was so happy that I got that because so many of them just like have no expectations
Yep.
for, and it goes places.
Yep.
Let's just put it that way. How about you,
All I
Corey?
knew was like supernatural crime thriller, and I'm like, I'm in.
There you go. Corey, what's your
Mine,
recommendation?
2013, Coen Brothers, pretty straightforward. Inside Llewyn Davis is my recommendation uh, today. I mean, just everything about it. I think it's probably my favorite Coen Brother movie. I just love the setting of 60s, the village, a perfect tie-in for this. We got some kind of New York.
Complete unknown.
There you go. The music again is really well done. Loosely based off of an actual folk singer, if I'm not mistaken
Yeah.
there. So I really enjoyed it a lot. Again, I've said it before, but there's a lot of movies where I kind of romanticize the setting or the tone or the feel of a film, and this one, just right from the beginning, that opening song that Oscar Isaac sings is just that. I remember sitting in the theater when I first saw it, and I was hooked. I was like, this is amazing. So definitely recommend Inside Llewyn Davis.
There's so many great performances in that, even from
Yeah.
like these very small roles. F. Murray Abraham, like that scene with him and Oscar Isaac is just tears your heart out
Yeah.
and
Mhm.
just nails it. But yeah, it's a very interesting companion piece with a complete unknown out
Yeah.
right now, since there is Bob Dylan in this. So, um, my my general quick three recommendations here. So I actually did put the Brutalist on here that I was going to recommend because I did
Nice.
see it, and it's out enough. There's two things that I think will hold up people. It's the length and one particular narrative choice in the third act of this movie that will make or break this movie for you. But the
Mm.
performances are incredible, the score is incredible, the cinematography is out of this world with that Vista vision. And it is a very layered, complicated immigrant story about anti-Semitism and hits a lot of very topical things in 2025. And will Adrian Brody win his follow-up Oscar? What, 23 years later? He could be. It's kind of looking that way. And he would deserve it. Also, Guy Pearce was incredible. If it wasn't for Kieran Culkin, I think Guy Pearce would be getting a lot more Best Supporting Actor buzz. But I think Kieran Culkin has that like in the bag.
Right.
So
Probably.
there's that. One film off my watch list was a short film called Balance, which is literally 2 minutes, but it's very creative and meaningful, and it's from director Daniel Kwan.
Hmm.
So one of the Daniels. And I'm not going to say much about it. It's on YouTube. If you look it up, it's like 2.5 minutes. It's just a creative little film. And you can feel that creativity that you wind up seeing in his feature length films. And then yesterday was my wife's birthday movie marathon, Going Farrell, a Colin Farrell movie marathon. And one of them, and I was trying to think which one I wanted to recommend. I was very close to just saying the Batman again. But I'm going to go Phone Booth because without the credits,
Yes.
this movie is 75 minutes.
Yeah.
It is lean, it's mean, and
Yeah.
I hated Colin Farrell at that point between Daredevil and Alexander. But like he actually does some really good acting here.
Yeah.
Kiefer Sutherland, a Joel Schumacher regular over the decades, really stands out. Forrest Whitaker. It's just if you want a lean, mean, bold kind of thriller with a high concept of a guy stuck in a phone booth, if you know what that is for the
Mhm.
younger viewers out there, this movie has aged so
I was going
poorly.
to say that's
Yeah.
crazy to think about.
Just from context. It's just like, what's a phone? And it's just like star 69. It's like all the little things are just like all the things that people
Yeah.
like Gen Z and Gen Alpha have no idea what the hell this is. But it's a fun movie and you should check it out.
Yeah.
But that is a wrap here on Welcome to the Wasteland. Thank you, Luke. Thank you, Aaron. And thank you, Corey, so much for coming on and talking movies with me.
Always blast.
Thank
Yeah, of
you.
course.
And thank all of you out there for always tuning in and supporting your Wasteland Reviewer.